Good afternoon, everyone. If everyone could take their seat, we're about to begin our last but not least, very interesting panel on artificial intelligence. I hope everyone had a great lunch. I know I've been absolutely impressed by the Spanish Senate restaurant yet again. So muchas gracias al restaurante del Senado. Realmente la comida es excepcional.
The food was exceptional, so thank you.
We are already a little bit behind time. Josefa, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias, Caroline.
Thank you, Caroline. We start the last section of this conference in the Senate in Madrid. We are delighted to have our speakers for this panel that, compared to the previous sessions, this fifth session is going to work as a panel where the four speakers are going to give their approach about the use of AI in our parliaments and in our specialty as librarians, archivists, and documentarists. And then we will have a debate between the speakers where they exchange their approaches, their viewpoints, and then we will open questions to the floor so that they can also reply to your doubts, or at least they are expressed, so maybe in the future can be replied, because we're going to talk about a topic which has a great deal to do with the future and the present too. So we are really eager to know what our specialists have to tell us. Manuel, can you please introduce our panelists and give them the floor? Thank you, Pepa. I know it's a difficult hour after lunch. We're all slightly dozing, but we have a very interesting topic ahead. AI, artificial intelligence, since the evolution of ChatGPT and the democratization of AI, thanks to these tools that have brought this technology closer to the general audience. It is a topic which is present in every fora, of course, in the librarians forum too. Let me give the floor to the first speaker, Emmanuel Odai from the Parliament of Ghana, Anne-Marie Jeanine Charette.
Canada, and his presentation, Exploring Testing of Generative AI Tools at the Library of Parliament. Thanks a lot.
Gracias, Manuel.
Thank you, Manuel.
This is going to be distracting. Thank you for welcoming me. So I'm here presenting on behalf of the Library of Parliament. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not a librarian. I'm here in my capacity as the chair of our AI working group, and I work as general counsel for the Library of Parliament. Dr. Lank sends her wishes. Today is her last day of work at the library, so she's busy packing up, but I think she made some time to watch some of the proceedings today. If we can go to the next slide, please. Oh, I do it? Oh.
Maybe I can help you.
So the Library of Parliament, we've presented at other panels. We serve both chambers, so both the Senate, which is the upper house of bicameral Parliament, and the House of Commons, which is the lower house. We have a vast research section that provide research and analysis to members, and we do also do the traditional librarian function of developing collection, maintaining, archiving, that sort of thing. We also provide public education programming. That means Parliament tours of Parliament and of the various buildings as well. So for our the testing that we did, so the working group, we are really a cross-sector membership. So we have people from the library side, the research side, and also people working in our common services programming, so people in HR, financial services. And what we wanted was to test which kind of application we could do of AI in our work. So we've started last year, and the first 4 areas that we've explored were reference and writing assistant, image creation, media monitoring, and data visualization and analysis. And this is a picture rendered by AI of us conducting our exploratory testing. I can assure you there were less cords around, and especially, and it was not as sophisticated as that. So for the reference and writing assistant, so what we did is we wanted to know if it was an effective way to assist us in drafting some response for members of parliament. We've decided to test 3 tools, so Notion AI, ChatGPT, and Copilot. We chose most of these tools because they were low cost, and also we had put questions out to the various parliament to know what other institutions were using, and some were the answers that came up the most. And we tested the different prompts. The prompts we used were our reference requests that our librarian answered in the past, so we can ensure that we had some quality answers that we can compare the outputs to. So when we tested, what came out as a benefit was how easy to use these tools were. So really the user friendliness and user experience, what came out as at the top. But as we've heard earlier, there are some concern about accuracy of data, and especially if you look at for ChatGPT and Notion AI, they're both tools that are not connected to the internet, and they have limitations about the time span of their answers. So they couldn't provide you something in real time. There would have been a cutoff of, let's say, I think it was June 2022 when we tested. So you couldn't get any more recent data than that. So that's an important limitation when you're using these tools. And even with that, our user did find that ChatGPT was the most useful of all of them, even with that limitation. It also reinforced the ideas that fact-checking your answers and comparing to authoritative sources is essential when you use these tools. And we have developed some guidelines, and I think there's another speakers later on that's going to talk about their own guidelines that they've developed for their parliament. So the second one we tested were images. So those were tools that you can generate. You can have a prompt and they can create some images. And what we wanted to see is whether or not we could create parliamentary imagery that could be used for our public education program, or maybe images that we can use for our publications side. So for that we had a fictional publication on psychedelic-assisted therapy, and that result were some very trippy images. So for that purpose, we tested 4 tools, and really there's only one that we would recommend out of these 4 that could be used for official purposes, and that would be DALL-E, which is also an OpenAI product, so the same company that's behind ChatGPT. So really that one provided the best overall experience. So that one really provided the best overall experience. One of the features that was commended is that it could easily reproduce some different styles. So let's say you wanted to have a house, but you say, oh, I want it in watercolor, I want it made out of Lego, I want it made out of cardboard. It could easily convey that idea. But what a limitation we noticed is, so there was sometimes misconception of what Canada is. So often the products that were, the output that were generated were images that were mostly UK based, so a lot of UK parliamentary, or also a lot of American. So Canadian specific content was difficult to come by. And also, and I have some sample behind, you can, none of them can really depict text or numbers or clock in something that's recognizable. And also all of them, the depiction of human bodies it can often recreate something that's really off-putting. So 5 hands, or weird numbers of fingers, or a very mangled appearance. So those were some samples of the image that were created. So the first one is we asked for a rendition of a watercolor center block, which is the main parliamentary building. So it did give us a nice result, but maybe you can't really see it on the slide, but if you look close to the clock itself, the numbers are a bit mangled and distorted. The second one really gave a really cute result. It's we asked for a cartoon cat giving a tour of the House of Commons. So most of the architectural feature were well represented. Maybe a mistake with the benches, they're facing the other way normally in the room, and also the uniform is the right color uniform that our guides are using. The last one, you can definitely see what's the limitation with text. So the tool knows what text is and has the idea of what text should look like, but all of the words are nonsensical. So in the middle, it's supposed to be written Canada, but it's Panada. So not at all. And then the symbols changes, and if you look closer to the faces, they're really off-putting, and they can be a bit scary when you look at them. So one of the, we also wanted to see if some of the database we had who have started to incorporate AI features could be leveraged and have we can save some time in there. So one of the database we use is Meltwater. So this is used by our current awareness and media monitoring team. So there was 3 specific functions that we tested. So AI tagging, which was to have the tools assign some subject to a text without having necessarily the word in there. And then there was search assistant, and then clusters and spike detection. So for the tagging, what we did is for a period of 2 weeks, staff manually searched some keywords and then would manually tag text. And then the 2 weeks after that, they would let the tool tag the text themselves and to see whether or not it could accurately assign the correct tagging. What we found is that often than not, AI doesn't want to disappoint you. So even if there's no possible answer, they'll still find something, and they'll tend to over tag things or provide you answers. So sometimes that's what also causes hallucination. And because it took 2 weeks to train, and the result at the end were not necessarily conclusive. So for the search assistant, that it worked a bit better. So what it did is you can answer in a plain language. You can say, I want to search a certain article on X subject, and then it will create to you a search string with Boolean terms, and then will then generate the search strings, and you can adjust as you want. And then for that one, it's what our users noticed. It was a good starting point to, especially if you want to get insight on a lesser known topic, not necessarily if you, if you want to know, it can suggest you some concepts that are close by, but you wouldn't necessarily know when you are starting the search. And then with the conversation with the tool, it can make you additional suggestions. And what clusters and spike detection works like is, so if you search on a specific concept, it will summarize a large number of articles on different types. So, and I can show you what they look like, because maybe these descriptions don't do it justice. So this first images is the search string. So the prompt that we asked was to create a news alert for the parliamentary budget officer and some of his announcement that we make. So you can see that in the conversation, the tool will suggest what kind of news sources, where to find, which country to find, and also the topic itself. And then it generates the search string. And this is for the clusters and spike. So what it does is we search for a period of over a month of any mentions related to pharmacare, which was a topic that was heavily discussed in the news in Canada. And then it really found like 7 type of articles or of stories that came out of that and produced a summary that was quite accurate. The limitation with this one is you really need a high number of mentions to have any type of accurate result. And when we're functioning in a bilingual country where you have the French publications, which would be maybe 25% of the amount that the English publication would have, it creates a barrier to using the tool. So their last use was really the most promising one. Was we only concentrate on one tool, which was ChatGPT, and it's our data visualization team that used it to enhance some of the graphs that they were doing. So what they did is they uploaded the data set that they know was reliable. So that was the Statistic Canada census data. And then they use it for various tasks. So for generated code when they want to create some graphs, and they also were able to use it to have some preliminary analysis of their data set, and also it can be used for methods of visualizing specific sets, so creating chart mockups and so on. So they found that the code generated don't always work as intended and often require modification or improvement. Nonetheless, if you're someone who's very well versed in it, it comes easier for you to use, and you can write better prompts that can lead to the intended results, and you're also in a better position to detect your errors. So, because all of the people who tested it were people who were well versed in data analysis, they had great success, and the quality of their output was good, and they were able to create good product. And now it's one of our employees are often using this as a starting point to boost their effectiveness in doing that type of work. So this is what can be done. So for the first draft, they asked the prompt was to create a group bar chart to show unemployment rate between landed immigrant and the Canadian-born for each provinces. And also they specified to use our color scheme and our visual identity branding, so that the ChatGPT was able to generate that first graph, and was also able to generate the facets that you see at the right side. So for each provinces, and then they specified how to classify the provinces by alphabetical order and that sort of thing. So that was the same question about unemployment rate. So as we've concluded our first phase of testing, we're hoping to continue doing other things. We want to explore tools looking for more public policy, so more in-depth research. And there's other tools other than ChatGPT that we can use, that especially tools that are connected to database, specialized database that we have access to, so we know that the data set that's used is more reliable. So that's one of the things we also want to use for legal researches. So the Quick Law, Westlaw have all developed their features in their tools. So that's something else. And we're also looking for cataloging. So maybe have some AI component on our catalogs so the users could interact and then have a better user experience in accessing what we're already providing to them. We're creating a community of practice where we can share what are the different example, case use, and give tips between each other. And we're also developing some training and awareness activity. So thank you so much, and looking forward for your questions.
Thank you, Marie. A very interesting presentation with some very useful use cases just to inspire other people. Now, the next presentation is la siguiente presentación.
The next presentation will be our colleague Marina Cueto from the Congress of Deputies, and it's called
Parliamentary Libraries and Research Services. Thanks a lot, Marina.
Hola. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you very much, Pepa, Manuel, for accepting this presentation for the conference. As you can see, my presentation is devoted to the guidelines on the use of libraries in parliaments, and I'm going to try to focus on what we can all take away in our specific policies and the policies related to study and documentation services in parliaments. But before I begin, I would like to give you a brief introduction, introduce myself, and explain why I'm here. As you can see, I work for the Congress of Deputies. I am an archivist and I am a civil servant for the Parliament, the civil servants for libraries and archivists. There's quite a few of us, and quite a few are here in this room, so thank you very much for being here. And we work for the two chambers. The Senate was my house until June, and I was there for 24 years. And during that time, I managed parliamentary documents. That is, any documents generated by parliamentary activity here at the Spanish Senate. During plenary sessions, so any kind of documents that came out of those. And in June, I was given the opportunity to change to the other chamber and work in something else. I will explain later. But what I'm doing now is very closely related, because I think archivists manage documents and parliaments are documentary institutions. Therefore, it's closely related. And we're all asking ourselves questions about artificial intelligence. And what we're wondering is how our documents are currently stored, how can we store them, what tools we can use, and where technology is right now. And it's important to take into account that projects that only a few years ago we couldn't even think of implementing, we can right now, and this is thanks to technology. And I know this sounds obvious, but it's something that I really wanted to express here. And something else before I go into my presentation. I'm going to talk about guidelines for the use of AI in Parliament. And these guidelines are actually published. It's a publication that you can download. And I wanted to tell you about how we came about drafting these guidelines and how the work group managed to get them done and published. So just to give you an overview of the structure of my presentation, I'm going to talk about why we need guidelines, first of all, because I think this is going to condition the structure and the development of the publication. And I'm going to talk about the development and attributes. And within the publication, we have 6 different spheres or sections. We are currently translating these guidelines. working language has been English, but we're going to translate these guidelines into different languages. We started working on the Spanish translation this summer, and it's going to be ready for publishing next month. I did the first version myself. And the working group always knew from the onset that everyone within the working group wants to disseminate the work and also encourage other people to get involved. And so why do we need guidelines in this subject? Here in IFLA and the profession of archivists and librarians, we have many different guidelines. We have guidelines for parliamentary libraries, amongst many others. And they serve as a way of structuring big concepts and big policies and how they are applied to our parliaments. And what's important here is that our objective is to find consistency and to develop standards. In this publication I'm talking about, we have made a great effort to develop and to publish some standards and good practices that we have been using until now, and which, with the advent of AI, which are going to be enriched by the advent of AI. Now, another important point is ethics, and we're going to see that the first thing that we worked on were ethical principles, and most of the guidelines that we have created stemmed from those ethical principles. Now, concerning good practices, obviously the use of standards, this is not because I am repeating myself, but because I think it's another point of view. And in the working group, we debated very much in depth about different issues. We have to remember that parliaments are institutions that are fundamental in the development of democracies. And it is through parliaments that we must promote certain values through our procedures. Now, you can see on the slide the publication in English. You can actually download it from the presentation. There's 40 guidelines, which, as I said before, are divided into 6 sections, and this was carried out by the Westminster Foundation for Democracy. And there was a presentation in July, and we were actually hoping that it would have been a bigger presentation than it was. However, unfortunately, on the date that we were going to hold the presentation, it was the Constitution of the House of Commons, so we disseminated through LinkedIn, and there were a few discussions around it, but it wasn't as big as we had hoped. Now, as you can see, the working group had 22 members who came from 16 different countries and with a very varied background, as you can see. We have 6 different chambers, 6 different parliaments within the group, and the coordinator, Fotis Vitsilis, is a civil servant in the Greek parliament, and he's a great expert and also leads the scientific policies of the Greek parliament. And you can see on the slide all the names of the people who have participated in the creation of these guidelines. So I was saying they belong to 6 different parliaments. And something that I think it's important to take into account is that some of the people who are part of the group are very closely linked to the way of working that we have, for example, in the House of Representatives in the US. Yeah, so these are people who work for private companies, but who are working and are a key piece in all their developments. The work of the working group was done on a Google Drive. We had nothing else. That was all we had in terms of resources. And we were working on Saturday afternoons and on Sundays. So it has been work which complemented everything else we did. Yeah, I was the first archivist in the Senate, so I had quite a few things to do. But basically, this was something that we did on the side and on top of all our other duties. The idea here was to create a structure that was very similar to that of the publication here for my presentation. These are the 6 principles. We're going to talk about them. And we need to take into account that AI and all the different techniques that it involves have been analyzed, taken into account every single aspect related to the Parliament. You can see the classification here on the slide. This is the number of guidelines that we have for each sector. And so, as I said, first of all, we had ethical principles. It's the first 10 guidelines. This is the section that has the most guidelines and the most information, and also it has generated most debates. Because it's true that sometimes ethical principles were already covered in, or were going to be covered in the next sections. However, we deemed important to establish from the onset where we were heading from the point of view of ethics. And why? Because the second section is general artificial intelligence, or traditional artificial intelligence. We've always said is the one that helps us automatize tasks, and this is very important. And also taking into account the role that humans play and how much autonomy human intelligence has. And obviously there are certain ethical requirements that developers and designers have to take into account. I would also like to say here that it's one of the principles. I think next time I give this presentation, I'm going to give all the guidelines first so that I don't jump from one to the other. But one thing that's important to mention here is that every single one of the guidelines were approached from 3 points of view. And basically, we wanted them to answer 3 questions. First, why was that guideline important? Second, whether there were any other examples of similar guidelines in other instances. And thirdly, how could we implement it? So it was a question about the future. So especially the second question concerning examples. If you have a look at the publication, you will see that the bibliography is quite vast. And the rationale behind this is the fact that we wanted to highlight that there are numerous processes and procedures that we are using nowadays and which could be amplified by the use of these technologies and obviously AI. Another very important point is privacy and security. I'm sure you're not surprised by this. And we need to take into account integrity of sources, and this is principle number 6. And also taking into account that we have to be very careful in terms of security when implementing these processes. The next section is governance and oversight. And here some parliaments have already started working on this, but here we saw the need to integrate and to create a transformative digital transformation strategy that we needed to follow within parliaments. Now, data governance, it's another important issue, and especially establishing data protocols. And here we introduce the FAIR, which is something that is very close to what we do with archives here, the need to have data which is reliable and easy to be adapted, amongst others. The next section is about AI system design and operation. And I'm going to talk a bit more in depth here, because I think from the point of view of document management is something important, because when we talk about algorithms and how to explain algorithms, reminds me that in this day and age we're talking about AI and all the risks that it involves. In our role as managers of information, it's very important to be reminded of this. So this reminds me of the time when the internet came about, and I know it can sound a bit naive, but I remember when the internet was open to the public and we started carrying out searches on the internet, and many people within our profession said that our work was going to disappear and that there wouldn't be jobs for us anymore. And now you can see newspapers saying that AI is going to destroy quite a number of professions, and apparently our profession is one of those at high risk of being destroyed by AI. The other example, search engines and the question of relevance. It seemed like it was some sort of black box. And I think it's the same that's happening right now with algorithms. And obviously we need to fight, and we need to, of course, acknowledge that algorithms can be used and should be used. But we also need to explain and demonstrate and test whether the results really work. Because this is not just about automatizing tasks and forgetting about it. Everything needs to make sense, and we need to apply common sense as well, and keep vigilant. And now concerning the application of standardized data and processes, here I would like to highlight once again the work that we're carrying out in terms of data standardization, in terms of creating interoperable systems with the so-called open data. These are all concepts that we all know and are familiar with. But yesterday I was following the presentations, and the representatives of the European Parliament mentioned that we had to work on offering different formats, and this is what we are as well. PDF is a nice format, and in the parliamentary arena, PDF has been king for a long time, because parliaments wanted to have their gazettes available, and they wanted them to look nice as well. But XML open data cannot exist if you don't have that collection. You can keep publishing for as long as you want, but you're not really processing the information, yeah? And I think our users are really asking more from us. Also because PDF publications are there, but it's difficult to apply context, for example. And context is absolutely key, yeah? And we need to have successive publications, one after the other, in strict order, but that is not enough. So I'm not saying that we have to stop using PDF, but we need to get used to the idea that PDF is just another format available. It's true, it's a format that we have developed quite a bit, and it works really well, but I think we have to go back to XML. And at this point, in the working group, Monica Palmirani, who was part of the group and works at the University of Bologna, she's been talking about these subjects since 2004, yeah, XML, but XML in a standardized format that the European Parliament and others as well, but especially the European Parliament, are already implementing, and they're seeing that it works. And this has been a concern for the working group as well, yeah, with the 3 questions that I mentioned. So we thought, okay, we're going to collect some good practices and compile some good practices, but we also need to take into account things that are already working, that we can integrate and that we can work on from the point of view of AI. And the last section would be AI capacity building and education. Yeah, so training, both for staff, because parliaments are very traditional institutions. And someone mentioned it yesterday as well, the innovation and developing innovation is absolutely key, but it's very difficult in parliaments. And there's an issue because people find it hard to change, yeah? They always say, well, why should we change if things have always been done this way? And they worked. And of course they worked, but sometimes we can do them differently as well. And whilst we do them differently, I'm sure we can get more information and we can get that information faster. So guideline number 4 in this section is about documenting. Documenting is a word that we haven't used as a verb in Spanish for long. It's quite recent. And sometimes parliamentary traditions prevent us from carrying out this documentation because the people who are carrying out the work have always been working in a specific way and they don't see the need to do something new. But capacity building and education, which is basically the name of the section, allows us to make parliaments, which have usually worked very much sort of inwards and internally. We are getting parliaments in the spotlight and making them visible. There are lots of projects and information that are happening and are being carried out, and they should be published in other places, not only a website. And as I said, this project started around November 2023. And one of the requests was that we had to advertise it. And I have already mentioned that we're working on translations for these guidelines. And you always wonder, well, if English is the international common language, what's the point of translating, right? Well, thanks to technology, we can use English, but it's important to have publications in people's native languages as well. And this is key in terms of promoting as well, yeah, because everyone should be able to read them in their own language. So we've also been presenting and discussing in international fora, and here I am telling you about it in this forum, and obviously seeking collaboration with IPU and other places, but the one that we've had in this group has been extremely satisfactory as well. And now just to mention further development and improvement, one thing that I would like to mention is that within AI, one of the technologies that I like is natural language processing. And it's a subject that is giving many positive projects to transform audio material into text. And I'm mentioning it here because LLMs, large language models, which are key to AI and natural language processing, and this is something that in a parliamentary context is very much in vogue. And it's actually giving very positive outcomes. And just to finalize, I wanted to show you a screenshot that you will find in the publication as well, which is basically all the AI applications that can be used in a parliamentary context, and we have classified them and we have a structure. There's a lot of work to be done. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Marina, por
Thank you so much, Marina, for discovering, at least to me, this really interesting article, publication. I wasn't aware of it, and it seems that it's really deep, so thank you very much. And thank you for collaborating into translating into Spanish. The next speaker is Miguel Ángel Gonzalo, colleague of the Congress. He's going to present his speech, the role of artificial intelligence in open parliament, enhancing transparency, critical thinking, and combating disinformation. Miguel Ángel, thank you very much. You've got the floor. Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you to the Senate. Thank you, Pepa. Thank you, IFLA, for allowing me to share these experiences and reflections. The first reflection, this image is generated with AI. And if you see in the first version, this was fully biased in masculine. This is one of the first problems we have. We have to work so that AI loses that bias, that patriarchal, colonial, and Eurocentricity biases. I'd like to convey 4 reflections, ideas stemming from my own experience and a good practice exam. I would like to talk about the transparency experience, how AI, because I am the responsible of the transparency portal on the Congress, and I'd like to talk about critical thinking, trying to be technologically optimistic, because it's true that there is a certain trend to think that AI is negative for creativity, but I don't think so. And I'd also like to talk about my practical experience in a research group of disinformation, and I have had some experiences in a country which I love so much, like Fabiola does, Mexico. And finally, I'd like to talk about the last work we are carrying out in the Congress, the approval of the first plan of open parliament and the measures that, if it's approved by the table, will have to do with transparency. Previous reflection. This is a classic graph where you see how generative AI is at its highest peak of the expectations curve. This makes us make a reflection. We've seen these other technologies, and we have to reflect that we need to get over that mechanism of high expectations to a mechanism of realities. This does not mean that AI is not going to be a disruptive technology. I think it is going to be, but in order to surpass this cycle, we need mass and we need muscle, and we need for Parliament to develop real applications to transform these expectations into realities. I recommend you this publication on the spring of artificial intelligence, this unstable timing, where you have rain, sun, and I like this concept of the mysterious valley, the uncanny valley, because I think many reflections have some certain fear because AI may be too similar to us, and that is what we are afraid about. But if we go into that uncanny valley, if we go there, we will cast those shadows. About transparency, let me tell you that I think that the information processing capacity for legislative text is going to change our profession. And I really like this automatic catalog system of the German National Library, where the Bundestag Library is collaborating. And it's really, really interesting because they're working with automation of data to generate these, to take on this task. Classification information of parliamentary data is the first element to develop. In the Dutch Parliament, I got to know how they are generating traffic with AI from the debates, legislative debates, and it has a huge impact on active transparency. If we can translate our parliamentary debates, our legislative debates, into understandable terms as what they're doing, this is going to increase transparency. And so it goes with access to big masses, complex masses of information with major search engines. As webmaster, I think that the search engine is the major door, but that door sometimes is closed, and it is difficult to access. So I think that search engines based on AI, think about Perplexity, can help to improve the performance of the searches. The Parliament of Luxembourg, that I have had the occasion to visit recently, they are working for more intuitive surfing through websites based on AI systems. And of course, this has already been explained. Everything that has to do with visualization, you expressed it very well. Congratulations for your experiences. Yes, and the Swiss Parliament has got a project in collaboration with the university on how to create parliamentary data with AI. Let me say that it is fundamental to work towards legal open data. AI, from my experience until now, when making queries in the legal sector, was not providing efficient results, at least in Spain, because of the problem that a great deal of the legal document in Spain is protected. It's not open source. It's not open, or it might be open, but it cannot be processed with normal software. So in the case of Spain, legal texts, judicial texts, they don't provide so much good results. This is what they're doing in Switzerland, in Denmark. They're also working on parliamentarian initiatives with these projects, and of course a topic which is dear to me on Open Parliament, which is chatbots on participation platforms, citizen participation platforms. These chatbots are working in some parliaments, and we're going to help for citizens to be able to ask and to contribute mainly to the citizen participation platforms. About critical thinking, maybe this is what we're most afraid of, the capacity that AI has to generate knowledge autonomously and to generate its own knowledge through complex analysis. Of course, we're not at the time of generating autonomous content in mass. We're in the times, at least this is the experience I have, we're in the moment where and with really efficient results to process major masses of bibliographies and documents. You've worked on a mass of documents, I'm sure that documenters would take a huge deal of time to process, to draft these abstracts. But any Gemini system or Copilot systems, they do provide very efficient results when analyzing legislation. Let's imagine what this could be, simulating surfing or a negotiation, parliamentary negotiations with these AI tools on the basis of the study of the text to prepare the debate that from the services of the chamber we use. I've done some tests on the dossiers prepared by the chambers and how AI can convey to the members of the parliament an abstract of that huge volume of documents that the services prepare, but the MP needs an analysis. So an amendment has been presented, the Spaniards will understand. An amendment has been prepared, or a bill has presented that maybe is not really sought after, but AI would have detected it and maybe would have had avoided a constitutional conflict that we are having right now in Spain. For visualization of concepts, I think this is one of the realities we're going to have to start using. I've done this example myself using the version 1.0 of ChatGPT, not the standard version. In this case, I've loaded a bill on the regularization of migrants. The system can carry out analysis of the main elements, secondary elements, and develop a map about this bill, which is this one, tested, of course, and checked by experts. That is also very important, but which allows us the following. From this initial mapping, we can load the map of the amendments presented by the parliamentary groups for that bill, and you can see the impact in a single map, in a single graph, in a single image. You cannot read in the screen, but you can see how AI can identify and warn the legislator, which is what's the most important thing for me. The amendments presented by parliamentary groups, they've got this impact, they may have this other impact, and of course AI may have an ideology, may have a bias. We have to work that, experts too, we have to work on that too, but the possibilities that we have to analyze legal texts and to transfer that to MPs are crystal clear. This is really advanced. The Swedish Parliament has got these text recognition models that are really, really interesting. The National Assembly of Slovenia is working on a parliamentary document, which is the Journal of Sessions, and the work was explained by my colleague Marina, so I won't go into that, but it's really important to use AI on our own raw materials, which is the Journal of Sessions of the chambers. Then the Norwegian Parliament has got really interesting projects on the structure of the document, these major concerns since the 19th century, with a classification, a decimal classification. So the structure is what we like and what we know how to do. The structure is an essential source for AI to be able, at least from the tests I've done, to provide consistent results. But we're talking about autonomous generation of content, critical thought, and I do want to convey this idea too. The AI still makes mistakes, still hallucinates. There's a disclaimer in ChatGPT warning that you must review these mistakes, and that is as important, this disclaimer is as important as the response provided by ChatGPT. So this book by Ethan Mollick, Co-Intelligence, really helps with its concept to locate yourself. The idea would be AI is not going to substitute human intelligence. This is what this author thinks. It's going to be a co-intelligence. It is a really suggestive book that has made me think a lot about the role, and this is something really on libraries, the role that human beings have to review and confirm the reliability of data. The third block I wanted to cover is how can AI help us to share what, for me and for many other people, is the main threat to democracy worldwide: disinformation. From my experiences, this is what I want to share with you. AI has got a major importance when combating misinformation because it can identify patterns. And patterns are the ones that will allow us to catalog and describe what's information is disinformation and what information is not disinformation, or at least to identify these elements. Very quickly, I'm going to present this report in short. I had the honor to be the guest by the Electoral Court of Mexico to participate as electoral observer in the last elections in Mexico. And we developed, together with a research group of the Complutense model that I cannot explain, but a taxonomy about the information incidents. We work with local fact checkers, and they would provide the incidents of disinformation. And with the document model we developed, we could catalog that information. And with an AI layer, we could identify these patterns, identifying which were the narratives behind this disinformation. We reached the conclusion, maybe you cannot read it in the slide, but the main narrative identified in the Mexican case is the lack of trust towards electoral systems, the INE, way above any other narrative. So this is highly concerning because we can prove with data, not just by saying how there are agents in the Mexican case, but we're monitoring also elections. We see very similar patterns of disauthorizing the electoral antibodies in the different countries. And this is possible to analyze these big masses of information thanks to the potential of AI. We also had the occasion to go to the war room of INE-Certeza, which is the National Institute for Elections in Mexico, and they were just correcting a lot of fake news the days prior to the elections, and they were using for this fact-checking AI tools because the citizens need to receive truthful information, curated information about the reality. And let me conclude, in order not to exhaust all the time. The fourth block of what really interests me is the role of AI when developing open parliament plans. An open parliament, let me recall, has got transparency, participation, accountability, and ethics and probability. And in this access, AI can become a major element. The Congress is right now studying, and we hope if it works fine. In these times, it's not always easy to do what you're expected to do, but to approve the first plan of open parliament, we've got 33 measures in these 4 axes, some of them related to artificial intelligence. And one of them has to do with this ethical reflection that you were mentioning. I've got 2 books. There are many others because it's something that is really concerning. But let me tell you that some of the book readings that I've done on ethics in this domain, I see that there's a technophobic bias, which is common when technologies are disruptive. I get the feeling that, and it's not a criticism to your work, because I'm not aware of it, but I will read it carefully, but I get the feeling sometimes that the ethics is used as a tool, as the Inquisition with witch huntings. What we're afraid of, okay, let's control it and before it does anything. But this is just a personal reflection. But there are other reflections that I think are interesting, which have this humanistic approach among the ones Luciano Floridi, who's Italian, who's translated into English. He really has a really well-balanced approach on this humanistic reflection and the approach of human rights. In the Parliament plan, we have introduced measures to train the staff of the Congress, which is essential, about these technologies, to try and understand what this tool entails. And there's another working line in the plan, if approved, that is also quintessential, which has to do with inequality in the access to information and the use of what is called the plain text or plain language. In Spanish, we use clear language. AI can help to translate into plain text, which is not an easy language, clear language, plain text, plain language. So no matter who, independing on its legal status, social status, demography, everyone has the right to understand. So plain text, plain language is the right to understanding. And in that right to understand, the use of these AI tools used to parliamentary language, we think it's a democratic participation tool, which is really useful if well developed. And of course, there's another measure which we consider the star of the plan and the one that is highly debated, which has to do with the implementation of a citizen participation platform in the Congress, allowing citizens to present their contributions. In order to pass and process these contributions, introducing an AI layer is really useful to group these initiatives, to convey them and transfer them to parliamentary groups so that they can take the decisions they consider convenient or adequate. Let me conclude by saying that I think, and I insist, as I was telling you at the beginning, I'm optimistic. I think that this technology is going to really be disruptive. It's going to represent a major element, such as the many others. It is not yet. That is also clear. We are at a peak of expectations that we have to configure and see how they mature these technologies. Because today, we all talk, and I include myself, about the pretentiousness of knowing about AI, when I'm sure that only engineers, IT engineers such as Manuel, can explain what that is and how it works, how AI works. But once having said that, I think it's a really useful tool for transparency, critical thinking, and a fight against disinformation. And the parliaments using and that are implementing it will be more efficient and more connected with the citizens. And simply, I would like to say goodbye with this image, also generated with AI. And maybe if IFLA meets again in the Senate, maybe it will be the AI sitting here and talking to you, expressing better these reflections. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Miguel Ángel.
Thank you very much, Miguel Ángel. Very deep reflections on the future of AI and how we're going to be interacting with it as humans. I agree with you. I'm an optimist as well. I'm optimistic with the future of AI. And
from Liz Harding from the House of Commons in UK, and it's titled Artificial Intelligence and Democracy, Building AI Awareness and Good Information at the Heart of Democracy. Thank you. Thank you, Annelies.
Hello, everybody. It's me again. I want to thank the previous presenters because I had no idea what they were going to talk about, but I realized that they really provided me with a logical follow-up for my presentation, which is going to be a bit different. And I'm really glad that Mrs. Fernando yesterday stressed transferable skills and how we can use our knowledge and expertise as librarians to help our users. So this is exactly what this presentation is about, using our knowledge of information and AI literacy to help our users tackle information challenges such as AI and disinformation. So this is all about what we are doing at the House of Commons Library. So a quick disclaimer, I normally have a first part to this presentation which focuses on the impact of generative AI on democracy and politicians in particular. So I've only got a really short time with you, but I don't need to say much to convince you that we need to be aware of AI, and we need to be proactive users in our professional but also our personal lives. So the panel has done a really great job at ensuring that we are all on the same page. So what I'm introducing to you today is the Good Information Campaign. It's a collaboration between the Library Services team and the communication team at the House of Commons Library. And really the catalyst for this campaign was a challenge from the leader of the House at the time, Penny Mordaunt, who was really keen to understand the role of the library in challenging misinformation and disinformation. And this led us at the House of Commons Library to reflect and to consider what our role is in educating our users, members of Parliament, their staff, but also our parliamentary community in understanding what good information is, how we source it, how we use it, and how we convey it. So what we call information literacy. So as a result, the House of Commons Library launched the Good Information campaign to members of Parliament, their staff, and our parliamentary community in spring 2024. We launched with a panel event, and we had representatives from fact-checking agencies, we had the government statistical agencies, and also media literacy campaigners. And in true British fashion, we started with a quiz, and it went down really well. And we ended the campaign with the dissolution of Parliament earlier in the summer. So we're relaunching the campaign bigger and better in December, but we're also considering how we make good information our business as usual. So why do we talk about good information? Because first and foremost, it's really easy to be negative about AI, about disinformation and misinformation, but we wanted to stress the positives of using information in an ethical way, and we didn't want to be scaremongers. I was personally inspired by a quote by Josep Borrell, the Vice President of the European Commission, who says that democracy is a system that works on the basis of information, good information. We tend to complicate things, but really what this is all about is good information. And also because it gives us an opportunity to talk and train our users in good information practices, whether it's using our databases, being information critical, being able to use AI to its full advantages and ethically. Focusing on good information really allows us to provide a wider picture of the information landscape. So we're future-proofing the campaign. We also knew that we would not be able to create the silver bullet. We can't magically make everybody information literate, AI literate, and make our educational courses mandatory. I wish, but no, we cannot. So we chose the approach to have a campaign to get users to develop their awareness of informational matters, to have meaningful discussions with each other, receive education from us, receive the tools to find, recognize, and reuse good information. And at the same time, because this is really what marketing is all about, we could promote our own expertise. And it centers around the following products that I'm going to go through, which we call the Good Information Toolkit. So first is the misinformation training course, and as it's the most important. I'm very biased, I created it, so to me it's the best thing ever. It's a course about misinformation and disinformation, and especially what it looks like in the British political landscape. So we also address AI-generated mis and disinformation in this course. We discuss the specific tools that are used to create it, such as troll farms or bots. We talk about text information, text-based information, as well as visual information. And I think in this principle, we recognize that not everybody is highly digitally literate. We still need to talk about the basics there. And people are always interested in what sort of examples we use in the course. I'm sure you can imagine that talking about mis and disinformation and AI-generated disinformation, it's hard to be impartial, to be neutral about this. But I have found some good examples. So, for example, if I want to talk about fake news, I talk about a Jack the Ripper news story. So this is how I bring a bit of depth as well to what we're talking about. So on the screen here, you can see the outline of the course. The main takeaway from this course is that we give users the tools to be more critical and more vigilant of what they experience online, in particular social media. We know this is the place where it proliferates. So we give them some tools such as using the library, of course, using critical analysis frameworks, using lateral reading, for example. And we've had phenomenal feedback on this course. And I think that the reason why we're getting such great feedback and such great attendance is because we're not patronizing, we're not telling people how to do things necessarily, we're giving tools. But we have really powerful examples that stick into people's mind, that they will have conversation with their colleagues, with their family, with their friends about. And this is really what this course is about. So the next course that I'm going to develop is going to be specifically on AI literacy and prompt engineering, because we recognize that AI is becoming a tool that people are going to use, a parliamentary community is going to use. Whether we tell them how to do it, whether we tell them what is good practice, they're going to use it. So we really want to be at the forefront of this guidance. Then next, we had a range of topical talks. Usually they happen on a Tuesday afternoon every other week. And these are delivered by other parliamentary departments and external experts as well. And I think this is what makes this campaign impactful. We, through these external speakers, were able to address a wide range of topics, have different voices and expertise. And these speakers are able to talk about some topics that we're not necessarily comfortable discussing in our roles. So, for example, we had a talk about conspiracy theories, and those are highly political, but this is something that we need to know about. So I'm in the process of booking talks for the next run of the campaign. You can see on the slide here the first round of talks that we had. I'm hoping that we're going to have colleagues talking to us about health literacy. Again, we're going to have conspiracy theory from a media literacy professor, and also more talks on using statistics and how to fact check. And then finally we have, well, I say finally, last but not least, we have our range of research products that have been put together by our library specialists that are publicly available for you to have a look at, and they're all hyperlinked, so hopefully you will be able to access these. It's all publicly available, and it's really a great range of research from us on AI, on elections, on filter bubbles, really a wide range of what constitutes good information. So I was not able to change my slide, but I thought I wanted to preempt some questions. I wanted to talk a little bit about marketing and promotion, because you can imagine that promoting the campaign to a large number of MPs was difficult. So we used the usual communication channels of the House as well as our own. I even sat on a podcast, our internal podcast, which was a bit daunting to talk about the campaign. But it worked really well. We had to actually increase the number of places on a misinformation course. So we had to run it every other week. We had to open it to 25 people at a time. So this is why we're running the December campaign again, because we know that it works. We know that it's an important topic to discuss, and we want to be the leaders in this. So the next step really for the campaign is to build also a public hub for our work with all of our research products collated in the same place, but also have a range of short videos taken from the talks. And so that is also available to all of you. So I'm sure that once this is launched, I'll make sure to put it on the newsletter or the Juskmal list. So here are more resources that you can have a look at in your own time. I hope you found this interesting. If you've got any questions, please come and talk to me. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Thanks a lot, Annelies, for your interesting presentation. Ahora queríamos iniciar.
And now we would like to start a debate between the panelists with some questions that we're going to ask them. And then we have until just a bit before 5, because we need to close the conference as well. But we will open the floor to all of you if you'd like to ask any questions. So I was listening to the presentations, and I am a layman in the world of documentation because I am an engineer and I work with technology. But as I was listening to all of you, and the more I read about AI, one of the questions that come to mind, and I'm sure it comes to all of you, is what's the future of the profession, of your profession, the documentalist profession, in the world of AI, in the era of AI? How AI is going to help us, whether AI is going to substitute us, and whether we're going, or in which areas we're going to be working hand in hand with AI. So this is a question that I would like to ask all our panelists: how you see the future of the profession of documentalist, where you could add, well, the humans could add value in front of AI, and what other tasks can we automatize or substitute? So maybe Anne-Marie could start. Or actually, if you'd like to take the floor, this is an open question, so we don't need to take turns if you don't want to, whatever you prefer. Or maybe Pepa can break the ice. Yes, I think I'm going to break the ice because there have been some very beautiful and interesting ideas amongst all the presentations, and I have been taking notes and reflecting. So these are my first reflections from a professional point of view, which is what unites us all here, librarians and documentalists, and how we can apply all of this in our daily lives and in our work. Two things especially have drawn my attention, especially when we were talking about cataloging and automatizing cataloging. That would be fantastic, and I'm sure there will be progress soon, because that would definitely free some time for us as human beings, time that we could devote to other things. So if that was automatized, it would be of great help. But within parliaments, one thing that's drawn my attention is the training, the fact that we can train our users to use or to implement AI. And I think that's really, really interesting. The House of Commons has done a first trial, which, as you're telling us, is really successful in terms of, especially of participation. And that is really interesting, because we're all sick and tired of saying that we're going to train people to use the library, to use databases, all these subscriptions that we have, to make the most out of all these resources, these very expensive resources, and make sure that our users can access fast and efficiently all these things. And yet we find that there isn't that great participation. However, it's been completely different in terms of AI. And I understand that AI has been very important in all professions, and especially in the political profession. So the fact that this has been successful in the House of Commons, in your users, and having this training and bringing AI literacy to users, and making people aware of fake news or misinformation and disinformation, and how all this information is coming in and we don't even realize. And actually our president mentioned this when opening the conference yesterday. He mentioned how we need to fight and detect whether the data that we're receiving is actually fake. So, for example, analyzing legal text to see which changes amendments are bringing in. If AI can help us with that, that would be so useful, right? And our work would be very useful as well. If we can determine the origin of the sources in, for example, in the minutes of our debates, but also in our gazettes, if we could detect all the sources, both from present and previous minutes, and something that can be passed on term after term, it would be so important, if we could determine the searches, the origins, the sources, everything. And the fact that AI could read this very quickly and give us reliable information that we need to know and that we need to give our users. And our users are also citizens, and obviously citizens will want to know what politicians have said in the past. And if AI could read all that information, then our jobs will be even more useful, in the queries that external users make. And I think there are so many things that could complement our work as librarians and documentalists, do things that we cannot do as humans on our own. Yeah, it could complement our work. It is worrying as well, however, to trust AI completely just to save time, yeah. But we have to be the brokers, yeah, between AI and the users, rather than sending a query and giving the information away straight away. We will take some time, verify that all the facts are true, and then give the work to our users. So AI can do it very fast, but then we need to be brokers and we need to take the time to fact check everything before giving it to our users. Yeah, and I think this is a very important role that we can play for parliaments. This is just off the top of my head from what I've been hearing this afternoon, apart from the ethical sense, yeah, and preserving dignity and human rights. This is so important for Parliament, and we are celebrating the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We actually have an exhibition of our book collection at the hall of the Senate, which you can see later as well. And preserving all of this in the future is very important, and this is something that's even more important in the era of AI, and it's at the heart of Western democracies and of the work of parliaments throughout time, and I think it's something that needs to be preserved. So just you can add whatever you wish. Any other panelists would like to say something? Also, we can have the opinion of layman, if you don't mind. I'm going to share how I see the future of your profession as someone completely external. So, first of all, I said I'm optimistic because I think human beings are still going to be needed and are still going to be adding value. But some of those mechanical tasks or tasks that can be automatized and don't necessarily need that gift that human beings have and that machines have not yet achieved, and that is creativity, as well as the possibility of discerning. Yeah, so I was saying that as an engineer, I think the user of parliamentary services will ask a query to AI, and the AI can find in 2 seconds the relevant information, it can summarize it, and it can show it to the user. So the first reaction would be, okay, so what is the role of librarians and documentalists? Because if the AI can do everything and it can do it really fast, then what do we do? Yeah, what's our role? And for me, I think there's 3 things that we need to take into account. There's a before, there's a during, and there's an after. So before someone queries an AI, we need to train that AI. And I think this is where documentalists can play a key role in the selection of data that is going to be used to train these models. And as you know, this is a critical issue. Yeah, and the models should not be biased. Yeah, and this will depend on the data that is used to train them. So also, which type of LLM, large language model, are we going to use? Is the data that we're going to use open? And will it be professionals who choose that information? I think that's absolutely key, and I think that's where documentalists can really bring value. And this is before. Now, moving on to during. Someone queries an AI, and the AI gives an answer. But not everyone knows how to ask, okay? And this is when we talk about prompting engineering. We need to know how to ask AI in order to get the answer that we're looking for. And obviously, documentalists, duly trained and with the right skills, can really add lots of value in this, yeah, helping people to ask AI. And then after, where can we add value after? Well, fact-checking, making sure that the information is truthful, that there haven't been any hallucinations or biases. So I really see a big area of work in collaboration with AI. I think it's going to be working in parallel, humans and AI, and I think humans can add really high value in helping AI to give coherent and unbiased responses. Would anyone like to add anything else from the panelists, or shall we open the floor?
So that's a question that we ask ourselves in our working group, and we had the composition. We had younger librarians, older librarians, and even the longer tenured librarians. When we asked the question, and there's like, well, we've always been adapting to technology, so I don't think this is different. Some of the tasks that we've done, like they were especially targeting them if you're working with metadata. So that's something that could be more replaceable with AI. But I think at the core is your literacy skills, and also your work as educators. And I like the word that was used, broker. So I don't know if that was also I'm not sure what the word in Spanish was, but also you learning how to use AI and teaching the clients on how to use it. So being that conductor of information and helping them with its technology. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Miguel Ángel.
Thank you, Miguel Ángel. Yeah, I'm a professor at the Faculty of Documentation. I'm training the future documentarists. And for me, the major transformation is the substitution of procedures that are routines, that are for skill training. That is a major change for a profession and for the system to access the profession. So the skills based on memory are clearly obsolete in this context. And I think that I try to work with my students as Manuel was saying, with the prompt generation. That's the key. How do we develop strategies to prompt the system, to ask the system? This is the major skill to train with the future generations, because routine tasks, cataloging, indexing, drafting abstracts. In my experience with my students, the machine is much better than the teacher when doing, not to an expert cataloger, of course, but the ones who are mediocre in those matters, the machines are much better than us in those tasks. So the documentalist is the one who dialogues with the machine, the one who is going to program how AI is going to work with big data, big masses of data, and this automated curation of content. That is the professional challenge, the biggest one we have before us. Thank you, Miguel Ángel. Pepa? Let me stress that we have access to the presentations done by our colleagues in this panel. I think we didn't have much time. It's all been said very quickly, but many interesting things have been presented here. Many presentations with results of analysis and work carried out, backing the work of colleagues of Parliament. And that's interesting to continue to step up the ladder. So when we attend panels on AI in more open fora of other professions, there are things that we can apply and others that not. But we've talked about Parliament, and there's a major work presented by Anne-Marie of the Canadian Parliament. She's compared the different tools of AI, Copilot, and ChatGPT and others, and they've analyzed which is the one that's more reliable, the one that provides least reliable responses. But What she was saying is what's the bibliography that has been used. There are so many things that we may have an interest that deepening on those starting points of the analysis done by that parliament, for example, could be really, really useful for us. We've also heard the we've heard the work done, presented by the House of Commons. Let's hope we can access that tutorial that has been so successful with such a good deal of response, and so that we can adapt it to our parliament and see how can we move on when using AI in that hub that you want to open, which is really going to be useful for everyone. So thank you very much. Well, thank you, Pepa. So can we open the floor to the audience? Let us start that the way over there.
Automatic curation of information, but I'm thinking, at least for now, do you think that perhaps librarians or researchers in this context are still the best suited people to select information sources? So we're talking right now about a lot of open data that is accessible to everyone, but we all know that information is power, and so is knowledge, and a lot of it is in silos behind paywalls and some obscure databases that you may or may not know very much about. So to this day, I still think that we are best at, we purchase these resources, we're familiar with how they work and their purpose. So I still think that at least for now, knowledge of these sources still lives within the capacity of a lot of librarians who are very familiar with them. So maybe this will change, but for now I think we still have that, we do still have that function.
Yes, thank you for this comment. It's really relevant. I was referring to the future of the profession. I think that in the future, of course, I said it before, open data, open source data, at least in legal documentation, which is what I know the most, is still a challenge because, as you have really expressed very well, it's behind paywalls, restrictive mechanisms for access. In the college world, we talk about open science. The project of Harvard College, which I'm sure you know is really relevant because they are committed. Such a major university as Harvard is committed to release that knowledge so that AI can work with it. In the Spanish case, the Spanish government announced the creation of its own model of AI, Spanish AI model. That's the path. You have to construct models where you don't depend from Anglo-Saxon models that have access to other kinds of documents. In the case of the Spanish Parliament, of course, the creation of an LLM of our own propriety. I don't know if you know the experience of the Chilean Parliament. I was so lucky to go there. They've got 7 engineers working in their own model of LLM for the Chilean Parliament. You know it, right? And that's a path. That's a way in line that you're saying. Today, of course, curating content automatically is not possible because of what you said, but my bet is that sooner or later, and even sooner than later, the developing of our own models, where access to sources, free sources of information, open sources, will eliminate those biases, that will place us in a different position than the one we have right now. Let me comment. Sorry. I agree with Miguel Angel, but I wanted to focus on the fact that the future is to have interoperative systems, independent, that each institution will make its own model. I believe that we've been doing this since ever. So the work done by the EU, which apart its own work is the member states, we have to advance interoperability, data, LI. In parliaments, they've been asking, and they're creating a specific working group to so that parliamentary publications are interoperable and they can be classified in a single model. That's EU model, for example. It's really important because, as we said, the content in the case of the journals of the sessions, it's grounds that is over there. And we haven't been able to take the content of these sessions records, take that on context. In the general courts, we've got sessions of record of the Congress of the Senate. In the Senate, we made a huge effort with the search engine in the internet. And those are queries and searches that search against the full text, but that is not enough. And that is going to, in that, we're going to be assisted by AI, because AI will be able to, because in a search engine, they go session record per session record, and the PDF structure is a mechanism that is an obstacle, because then you have to curate, eliminate. So it is fundamental to have interoperability, because data are there. We have to be able to reach a consensus. Thank you. Thank you. We are going to take a couple of questions more, and we will close the session. We had someone there.
The exciting presentations. I have some practical questions for Anne-Marie. At the Hungarian Research Service, we also tested ChatGPT, how we could integrate it into the research work. And at the end of this test period, what I personally found quite frustrating was that I wasn't sure that our results were due to the limitations of ChatGPT or because we are not good enough at prompting, or maybe the combination of both. So my question is, how did you ensure that the results that you get are robust? And also whether you trained the participants of this testing previously in prompting. Thanks.
So for testing and prompting, some of the participants had previous knowledge on how to use it, and by themselves they were already interested in the subject. And I think most of our people who participated were people who were very keen to learn about it more. So that's one of the things that I will work on in the next year, is trying to bring most of the staff up to the same level of skill set. For the answers, especially for the research question, is we tested with research question that we already done. So we knew what the answers were, so we're able to have some comparison between that. And so there's one thing I alluded to towards the end of the presentation, is that we're pushing a bit more the research in ChatGPT and some of these other Perplexity site, and there's another one and I'm forgetting the name, and there's a bigger group of people who are looking at it, and they're reviewing with each other, and they're meeting to see how the work did, and how discussing between themselves the test. So we're having the meeting on it next Monday, so unfortunately I can't report on their finding, but maybe next year they'll be able to share their results. Thank you for your interest.
Thanks a lot, Anne-Marie. One more question. Anyone there? Okay, thank you.
Not a question, but just to pick on Annelise's discussion, especially on the point of the weekly talks. That is interesting to me, because the research unit at the ECOWAS Parliament is just about to begin what we call seminar series, where we will pick on topical subjects or key issues and do some research on and then share that knowledge with colleagues. So it will be good to learn from you because you are already doing it and you have some experience to share. So it will be good to learn, to collaborate, and then maybe to have you speak on some issues from time to time when we begin those series. So I will get in touch. I am very interested in that weekly talks. Thank you.
No problem. I'll give you my email address.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. I think we don't have more time for questions. So please, Caroline, for closing the session and the event. And thanks a lot again for your interesting presentations.
Thank you, everyone, for your very interesting presentations and for this discussion on AI. It was extremely interesting and insightful. It is my honor and privilege to do the conclusion of this amazing 2024 IFLA PARL annual conference. I know that it is Friday night, and we've had a long week, I believe, so I'll try to be brief, short. But I just want to acknowledge the great presentations we've had today. So it was really interesting and great to hear about the different initiatives that different libraries and parliamentary research services have been up to during the last year. So it was great to hear about the Agency Connection Center that the CRS created last year, the GIS office that you now have also. I am quite jealous of that, so I'll have to pick your brain on this. It was very interesting to learn about the data management platform that Togo you developed. Really a lot of work was put into this project as the survey, experience survey for Germany also was quite insightful too. And I really appreciated learning about the introduction of legislative impact analysis in South Korea. So that was also quite a discovery, as was the new digitization project and website search tool that Thailand put up for its search into its constitutional minutes of meeting. The regional associations provided great updates that let us know about what has been happening in the last year. So thank you very much for all the different representatives who have provided updates. And this panel this afternoon was extremely interesting. So I think that, Annelies, your presentation showed us, not Annelies, Anne-Marie, sorry, so sorry, Anne-Marie. Your presentation showed us many great examples of tools to try out, so I've noted a couple of possibilities. I really liked what Dali did with Canada. Yeah, that's great. I think I'm going to use that. That was really quite funny. Maria, the work you did with the guidelines on AI in parliaments is incredibly useful. We were like a bit of a bunch of groupies at my parliament when we saw this publication came out. So thank you, and thank you to your team and to Mr. Fatsilis' teams as well to have worked on this amazing tool. So we're really grateful to have this. And Lise, it was very interesting to know how to learn to build AI awareness since it is extremely important as there is a considerable impact that we can have as librarians and information professionals. And I was really happy to learn that AI can be a tool for stopping misinformation, because we often think that, we often hear that AI is propagating misinformation. So it's actually great to know that it can also do the opposite. So for me, it fills me with a lot of hope for the future. And the discussion that followed on the role of information professionals in artificial intelligence and the main change being the skills that we need to teach to the new professionals. It reminded me of something many experts said, that AI will not replace people, but people who know how to use AI will replace people who don't know how to use AI. So I think that's something to reflect for the future. So, to end this great conference, I want to thank all the speakers again of yesterday and today for all the great presentations. The posters presentations as well were great. Thank you, thank you, thank you all. I know it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and some courage also to present in front of a large crowd. So thank you very much for presenting during this conference. Me gustaría agradecer.
And I would like to thank once again Josefa and the staff of the Spanish Senate.
For
the fantastic welcome. We've said it a few times, but I think it's very important to reiterate our gratitude to everyone who's worked so hard to make this a successful event, because it has been a successful event, a great success indeed. And Josefa, I think you can be very proud of this event, how it has been organized and managed, because it has been an absolute success. We've had lots of fun.
I would like to thank the Senate committee members who also did a lot of work on this. Thank you for the great updates you provided this afternoon. It was quite moving to see this great team of people. Really, the work that you do on a daily basis is amazing. Yeah? And well, last but not least, thank you all for coming, for traveling, for taking interest into this event. It wouldn't exist if you weren't there. So to each and every one of you, a big thank you. Now, since it is Friday night, I would like to share with you a cultural practice from my home, a tradition that we do every Friday night since the beginning of civilization, which is having a drink at the end of the week. And we are very inclusive with the type of drinks. It can be a beer, it can be wine, water, soda, coffee, tea. So we would like to invite you, for the people who are interested, to continue the discussion in a more informal setting, to the Hotel Riu. If you have your iPhone, your phone, or a pen, and you want to note the address, otherwise you can just follow the crowd. We'll be a bunch going there. It's an hotel that is located 6 minutes from the Senate. It is on Plaza de España. And they seem to have an amazing rooftop bar. So we'll get a great view of Madrid to end this annual conference. And I'd like to thank Josefa for this gorgeous suggestion. It is 10 euros to enter, but I think the view will be worth the 10 euros. And they have a lot of options for drinks, and it will make great pictures for social media. So it would be great if you'd like to come. The address is 84 Gran Via 84. And with all that being said, since it is 5:04, thank you a lot, and we hope to see you next year. Thank you so much, and have a great, safe trip back home. Thank you.